Welcome to the Holy Hour Podcast. It's the bi-weekly All Cure Podcast. Gavin and Chaz here. And woo, boy, do we have a humdinger for you today. We got an amazing episode here. And
we got a hot one.
Yeah, so Chaz is must have thought it was Sweeps Weeks or something. So I got to say right off the bat, thank you, Chaz, for making this conversation happen with none other than Phil Thornalley. He's going to be joining us here in a minute. So, yeah, geesh. Going for the big guns there.
I'm torn between taking a lot of credit for this and not taking any.
Yeah,
so
it's all you, man.
I just sent an email and he said yes. So it's more on him than me. So I really appreciate Phil. Thank you for coming on. And thank you for actually answering two nobodies in the world of music, two podcast dorks that just wanted to talk about The Cure.
It came together really so quick. We were like, crap, let's make this happen before he changes his mind,
before he listens to all the episodes.
But we had joked in the other episodes of like, I don't even want to talk to anybody from The Cure. I'm a very much don't meet your idols kind of person. I don't want to ruin it or anything. And just between you and I, I've talked to her. I'm like, I'm just terrible at like instigating anything. I'm always down once it goes and it looks like it's happening. I'm like, all right, let's do this. But so thank you for making that happen, Chaz.
I'm on the opposite end where I have no shame. So I'll ask anybody. It's not a big deal to me. But like, the actual talking is the actual issue with me. So I think you and I are on the opposite sides there. So I'm good at initiating, you're good at talking. So
somehow, I figure we gotta just let it roll. So you can tell this interview, guys out there, I'm definitely on the nervous side, and hopefully we keep it together long enough to get a fun conversation. I was super happy with it, and felt like he was so cool and easy to talk to, so that was definitely helped, where I was felt like each little jotted down idea I had seemed to blend from one thing to another that he was talking about. So it was great. Made it, we tried to keep it fairly focused on pornography for the 40th anniversary. So I definitely on the top want to say everybody out there that's interested in the whole Phil experience, go back and listen to the profile we did earlier, because we really get into his full body of work there and all the songs he's been a part of. But we did, since we weren't sure how long we were going to have him, we're like just rapid fire throwing questions at him kind of idea.
Well, I think I asked one just because I was sitting there smiling like an idiot for the whole entire thing, and like, just hearing him talk, like dropping like stuff that we didn't even know about, and like information. He came prepared, which was absolutely wild. Like that kind of blew my mind. You'll see, but he was ready to talk and ready to shed some new information, and then also just he joked around with us, which was and he was just a great dude. So thank you. So and enjoy.
So maybe we'll recap some of those things here at the end, but let's just dive right in. Let these fine people out there hear the conversation.
Absolutely, let's go.
And let's dive in our conversation with Phil Thornalley. We have a wonderful treat for the Holy Hour listeners today. This is an enormously huge pleasure to introduce bass player, producer, songwriter, singer-songwriter extraordinaire, Phil Thornalley. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for that lovely. You buffed my ego up very nicely there. But I can assure you, it's very well defended after 40 years of the music business. My ego is like, it's nice. I can. Hopefully, I can take on all comers, because the music business is full of so many lovely people, as you probably realize.
Yeah, I bet. You've seen it all, I'm sure.
I've seen it all, and now at this point, I'm now 62, so I'm kind of being ushered out of the door of the music business. The phone, it's okay. I don't want that to sound bitter or cynical, but it's just like I've had lots of fun, many adventures, and now the coffin beckons, and and the phone, and who knows. I haven't spoken to the guys to the Cure for so many years. I'm sort of in touch with Lowell, like vaguely on Instagram, but like once a year.
Right.
Are you still alive? Let's get together for a coffee. And but he doesn't know where I am. I don't know where he is. So it's all done with the best of intentions.
Right
and as I said to you guys in the preamble, the things we're going to talk about, most of them are from 40 years ago. And so although I have a pretty good memory, my recollection will probably be very different from from the fans, from if any other, you guys usually know more about the gigs and the records.
Right on.
So excuse my, excuse if I mix up the truth and lies. I think in America and the UK, we're used to that now.
Right. Well, no worries.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. That's part of the fun with doing a Cure podcast too, because even when you go back to the original sources, you get about 5 different stories for each story. And all the history is a little, which
that's life, isn't it?
Makes it harder for them to call me out. So
we're looking at things from different, from different angles.
Yeah.
And that's what makes life rich and interesting.
For sure. So, well, we definitely can't thank you enough for being here. And even on the top, going back to inflating the ego, I just wanted to say a general huge thank you for all the music you've created and helped create throughout your career. Everybody here on Cure Podcast knows the mind-staggering resume that you have, but just so much great music that wouldn't be in the world without you. So just as a fanboy, thank you.
I've certainly, thank you very much. I've certainly stood by and watched some great musicians make some music and hopefully kicked them up the ass.
Yeah.
And help them along their way, either by discouraging them or, usually in my case, I'm unfortunately gifted with enthusiasm. That's cool. Most of the time when I've produced, even though inside you may be thinking, oh, this is just rubbish, stay enthusiastic, that's it, guys. You're coach. You are coach, and some people need a lot of coaching and some people don't need barely any coaching. And I guess perhaps Robert is one of those people who didn't really need any coaching, but I know he appreciated my sonic skills. I had a natural kind of an aptitude for recording music and knowing where things should go and what would make it sound better. And I'd also like to think sometimes make things sound weirder. I came from a background as an American singer-songwriter called Todd Rundgren, a son of Philadelphia that not many people know about now, but in the 70s he was a big inspiration for me, and he used to do some very maverick, over-the-top things, and I'd like to think some of that influence came into my skills when I was working with The Cure, because I knew that was appropriate. Of course, Todd's name back in the press because he was the original producer of Meatloaf. Although that was a kind of more of a radio record and a bit more straight ahead compared to his own stuff. So there we go. Yeah,
it makes a world of difference. Something, a lot of the pornography era questions and stuff, like you said, coming up on the 40th anniversary of that record. So it's
incredible.
Crazy, huh?
Incredible. I should just mention, about 15, 20 years ago, I'm going to show you, I don't know if you know this book.
No, I don't think so.
A French academic whose name is Philippe Gonon. He wrote an entire book about pornography.
Oh, wow.
And this was 15, 20 years ago. He was the first person to really badger me and get in touch. And ask me very technical questions, like boring engineer stuff and drum machine and did you use this or whatever. But for any fans of your podcast, if they want to dig deep and they happen to speak French, then Philippe Gonin, Gonin, he wrote a book called The Cure, Pornography.
Awesome.
And it's like $10. So
okay. Still...
if you want to dig a little deeper, he seemed like a good guy as well. I never met him, we just speak over the phone.
Cool. It is all in French though, or?
Well, maybe there's it is in French, but come on, guys, it's an international world.
Yeah, exactly. If there was ever
Gavin,
if there was ever
Google
a reason
translator.
to learn. Yeah. Awesome. We'll definitely try to track that down for the collection too. I've never seen that. So that's awesome.
Are you guys? I see your guitars, Gavin.
Yeah.
Are you both in bands or what?
I am not.
Not Chaz. Yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter mostly. Record my own stuff and play in various bands around town and do a lot of home recording and stuff too. So
and what's your hometown?
Asheville, North Carolina. So out on the western side of North Carolina, up in the mountains here. So.
Okay. My brother-in-law is in Charlotte.
Okay. Yeah, it's about.
So I have visited North Carolina just for a little.
Yeah. Yeah, we like it here. Good music scene and stuff. So yeah, it's fun.
Is that okay?
So yeah. Always try to get some cool music going. So yeah. Keeps
you alive.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm.
But with the 40th anniversary though, it was something in a lot of the books that I never confirm 100%. But was Pornography your first official produced album with like a producer credit?
Yeah, I think it probably was.
Yeah.
I mean, I signed up. I was the house engineer of the recording studio, which is still there. It's about two miles away from where I am now.
Okay.
It's called Rack Recording Studio, and I had done an apprenticeship and been like, it's now called assistant engineer. Then it was called tape op. You were a tape op. And then you watched the engineer and figured out how to record drums and orchestras and stuff. And then eventually became an engineer. And then if you were kind of a bit obnoxious and a loudmouth like me, then you became a producer because people would go, he seems to know what he's talking about.
Right on.
So I was originally hired I was part of the staff.
Yeah.
So they said The Cure, and I met them. And we recorded the album, and then like on the very last day, because the fact is I was producing because I didn't know how to do anything other than offer my opinion. Right. Not many engineers, sometimes that's out of place in the hierarchy of things, but those guys were the same age as me, and I was into it, and so that became. Just that it wasn't like a hierarchy. It was like we were all in it together.
Yeah.
And I would offer my honest opinion. Like how was that take? Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Because it usually was. And then they would give me space if they were doing an overdub. Say for instance, I go, I hear a sound, so they give me 20 minutes to kind of. And I guess you would call that production. So on the last day. As we're sitting in the pub with Robert, he said, we want to give you a co-production credit on this. And I was still pretty naive and green as well. Yeah. And all these years later, people, it's one of the things I'm very proud of.
Yeah. That was one I was going to follow up with, like 40 years. Have you listened back in a while? And nah. Yeah.
No, I never, let's face it, it's tough going.
Yeah.
And it's not, you could kind of Friday night feeling, you don't put, I tend to go towards the Bee Gees.
Right on.
I don't, gravitate towards, I much as I love the Cure pop songs, I'm a pop, I was always someone for the hits, which seems incongruous because you're working an album that is the complete opposite of making hits. And we actually spent like 2 days the record company boss said, you know, like this thing you used to hear in record companies all the time. I don't hear a single.
Right.
Like, can you turn it was Hanging Gardens, you know, like, can you turn that into a single? So we spent a couple of days kind of contriving a little bit, trying to make it a bit more hooky.
Yeah.
And failed. So
strangely enough, that was one that caught my ear as a kid. A friend of mine had, you know, standing on the beach, and it was like, you know, half of it I was like, what is he talking about? You know, falling into the walls and stuff. But then it just kind of stayed in there, and then I'm like hearing the other singles and the pop.
Fall. I remember like spending, like, this would make no difference to top 40, but there's some kind of backwards echoes and the actual. I seem to remember like the fall was kind of chased around the stereo image.
Yeah.
You know, I did have this. I was nicknamed Da Vinci, because I was, you know, like oral artist. That's AURAL artist, and because I'd listened to too many Todd Rundgren records and go like, this is really trippy. Let's do it. Yeah,
it definitely works. That one in particular is funny. I was watching for a future episode. I want to did a French TV show. I jotted down the name. It's on YouTube, but it was like really early on where they're playing Pornography songs, but it's it's the 3-piece, and it's cool because it's so thin sounding, you know, like Hanging Garden, he only does the little guitar part, and it's basically all bass, you know, and the drums there. And just kind of making me realize on the recording with all that cool backwards stuff going in there, how much it just fills it in sonically, you know, and that's...
You know, as I've said many times before, the band was really well rehearsed.
Yeah.
So when you get in a studio with if you're a producer with a band that's well rehearsed, then you really have a chance to. So, for instance, with Hanging Gardens, I think on a couple of those, I would say ask Simon to double track the bass.
Yeah,
which you did. I just thought and I think we triple tracked the bump, the floor tom beat. You know, dun 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 dun. And the room we were recording in was like this big wooden room, so you didn't have to. Like put a close mic on the drum and then dial up a reverb from what you'd call a plug-in now.
Yeah.
You actually put another microphone. You used another microphone to create the space.
Yeah.
So usually the roomy sound that you hear is just the sound of a microphone that's a long way away from the drums, with a compressor on it, to just make it as exciting as possible.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were well rehearsed meant that I could do that.
Yeah.
If they didn't know what they were doing, production generally comes back to how good is the band, and then most importantly, how good are their songs.
Right.
Because if they're shit,
then
and you're just, as we say here, or as a producer I used to work with, he used to say, you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter.
There you go. So. Yeah. You can dress it up as much as you want.
But with I think with that album, that was not the case. You know, they knew what they were doing, and so that always makes the job of the engineer and producer much easier.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I guess along those lines too, I was wondering, since maybe the songs were so already formed and everything coming in, did you get any kind of sign that it was gonna be such a dark album from the start? Did they kind of sit you down and be like, all right, this is gonna be heavy? Or was it just kind of apparent?
No, you know, one thing about being a staff engineer is that the week before The Cure came in, for instance, I don't know, but I would definitely have been working with the top 40 act, like a bona fide pop, bubblegum pop. I might have been recording a TV theme with an orchestra with a rhythm section with like 35 players in the room.
Right.
So when The Cure come in, it's just another day in the studio.
Yeah.
You go like I would have been, I was vaguely aware of their what they'd done because of the kind of cool radio shows here.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know them that well, which and maybe that was quite good because I
Yeah.
came in with I didn't know the sound of their records. It isn't until later that I hear the kind of claustrophobic sound that Mike Hedges went for,
Right.
where everything's really dry and tight. And so just to give you like some context, I'm not saying I didn't care. I think that was one of the reasons I was good, because I was generally very conscientious. I wanted to do a good job.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a good job for Barry Manilow. I wanted to do a good job for, Kim Wilde,
Right.
whoever was in the studio. I just wanted to do a good job. These guys come in, and I think I know what they want to go for.
Yeah.
I hear this big roomy drum sound, and lots of like bright rattling bass guitar, and so that's just the way I heard it. So and thankfully that obviously that excited Robert and Lowell and Simon too.
So yeah, it's like, if you want to go dark, we'll go dark, man. You just get along for that.
I think it's more a case of just like going, how can we make this sound compelling?
Yeah.
I wasn't going, actually I don't kind of remember it as being like, wow, this is dark.
Yeah.
I'd been a tape op on a Susie and the Banshees album like 18 months before, and I thought, Jesus, this is dark.
Right.
And I just, even after weeks of working on the album, I was still like, I just didn't like it. It's just like anti-music. But The Cure was a different kettle of fish. It seemed to all make sense. Good musicians, and a good band leader with an outstanding voice, outstanding kind of musicianship. So makes it come.
Like, as we say too a lot, they, even when they are going super dark, they have so many catchy hooks and stuff in those songs that it doesn't really feel, it's full.
Maybe so. Interestingly, with that album, you may have read this. I think I was on, I'm not sure what the American term would be, maybe probation.
Mm-hmm.
So we recorded demos of the whole of the album. The first thing we did, I think they just wanted to see what I was going to come up with. I don't know that for a fact. That's what I remember.
Uh-huh.
And so that was maybe a good idea. A couple of those demos, I think Cold was basically the demo that was worked on some more, because it just came out great.
Yeah.
And if you're part of being a producer is going like, you can call that whatever you like, a demo or a master, it's good.
Yeah.
Like there's something coming off of that recording that's like, and it wasn't just me. One of my best friend when I grew up was the tape op. He was my assistant.
Okay.
So, with the three lads out in the studio, I would be sitting with somebody else who I trusted, and we'd kind of look at each other and go like, this is really good. Like this just sometimes with recording, you don't know why, it just sounds good.
Yeah.
And for all the tweaking, and you always get pictures of engineers pushing up faders and turning the EQ or a compressor and making it like, wow, these guys, scientists.
Yeah.
And it's not like that at all. You're still just music fans going, and that moment when you look at each other, it might be a pop song, like a recording of that. You just go, what's going on? This sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So when the guys come in, you go, that's it. You did it.
Yeah.
With confidence. And like I say, because we were all the same age, I think there was none of that. Usually like a producer has got 10, 20 years more experience than the band. And there's a little bit of, oh, uncle, is that okay, uncle? But we're all rowing in the same boat, everyone was inexperienced or we'd all had like 3 or 4, maybe 3 years of recording experience.
Yeah.
So.
That makes it fun. Yeah. Like roughly 22 then, about 22.
About 22, it appears.
Man.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I am very proud of that. But I was pretty. I was quite precocious in the sense that I think producing, this, sounds like it's an ego like thing, but it was something that I just felt like I knew how to do.
Yeah.
And that record was one of the less stressful productions. As I went on through my career, you end up getting into some really tight spots with people that are really demanding, and then it gets stressful. And it can be a nightmare, but
well, that's cool to hear in Cure context too, because shortly after, were you surprised then to hear like the band kind of imploded for a bit on the tour shortly after? Did you see any signs of those cracks and stuff? Or
the first time I met them was the day we started recording. I think maybe I met them the day before, but perhaps either I wasn't aware of those cracks.
Yeah.
The making of the album seemed to be, I've seen plenty of bands where there's been fistfights in the control room.
Yeah.
Like real misunderstanding, and you're basically kids, so there's a lot of childish behavior, and but I don't remember. Even all sorts of people would turn up. Severin, the band's manager, who we were all kind of like going, every time he turned up. But other ex-members, Matthew turned up, and it was all just. I don't remember there being any tension, but I was probably immune to it, or maybe I was just distracted by concentrating on my kind of task, you know. But oftentimes with recording albums, you do find yourself going like, oh wow, the lead guitar player and the singer really, I don't know what's happening, but I've got to kind of and that really spoils the vibe, because you're always kind of second guessing, looking over your shoulder. You're going like, I think that was a great solo. And then out the corner of your eye, you're looking at the songwriter going, that was a really great solo, but we're going to do another one. So you have to be like psychologically, I wasn't that insensitive, but which many producers are like, that's their thing. They're just completely insensitive, and rightly so. They're just like, I want this. If you can't do it, I'll get somebody else to do it. But this wasn't like that at all.
That's cool. Yeah. Awesome.
I had a quick question, Gavin.
Yeah.
That just kind of popped into my head. On the track Pornography, where the Monty Python thing was dropped in, was that something that was more a decision of the band? Was it like something you just pulled out? Was it?
It was a complete fluke. And it just happened to, it wasn't actually Monty Python. It was Graham Chapman, who's in Monty Python.
That's right.
He was one of the six. And he was on this is just so bizarre. And it happened a couple of times in my career, actually. So around that time, there was a Brian Eno, David Byrne album called Bush of Ghosts, Life in the Bush of Ghosts, where they did, it might now be called sampling. But they kind of recorded different things, the radio, the TV, over a track to create atmospheres. And so for this, as Charles, or Chuck, if I may call you Chuck, mentioned, so we're thinking, I imagine the thinking went like this, we need some other disparate element on this piece of music to just add some weirdness or whatever. So we ran some cables to the TV, the TV lounge, which is in the studio. It was actually like a long way away. So lots of cables. Set up a mic to record straight from, because you're not on, you can't just go to YouTube and like find a clip. There's none of that. So it was called Found Sound. That was the kind of Brian Eno concept, I think. So we ran up the microphone, or Mike Nacito did. We press record, the track, Pornography, the track plays. The conversation on the TV thing is a current affairs like a fairly academic discussion about pornography. I mean, how weird is that? You know, you would
That's
think,
so rad.
of course, now you could go, like, you go to YouTube, okay, academic discussion about pornography.
Right.
Hit, there's, he's good. Oh, I like her. Let's listen to this one, you know, and just like turn it into an MP3, import it into your track. Yeah, take 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, this took about 2 minutes, but we were just had like the just very, very lucky.
That's fate.
So, so Charles, I hope that it was also another academic who Germaine Greer is her name. She wrote a famous feminist book called what was it called? It might have been called The Female Eunuch, something like this. In the 70s, that was a big kind of statement, and she was never short of opinion. Graham Chapman, of course, was lovably bonkers, but also he was a doctor. You know, he's actually a proper trained doctor. So I can't remember exactly what the conversation on the track is about, but
that's awesome.
That's
very cool.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. I guess shifting gears from pornography, we didn't want the opportunity to pass by to talk about, you know, obviously producing Lovecats too, the other side of the spectrum with The Cure. As you talked
He's done
about.
it. He did it all. He did the dark stuff. He did the light stuff.
Yeah, arguably the furthest extreme for the band in their whole career still too. So that's pretty rad.
I know, what a fluke.
That's awesome. Yeah, did that come as a shock at the time? They're like, okay, guys, so now we're doing Lovecats, or were you just kind of going with the flow again? So.
I think the latter, just going with the flow.
Yeah.
We'd done a little. That was the first time I toured with the band. Okay. So Andy was drumming.
Yeah.
Lol had switched to keyboards. So it was a promotional tour, and they were doing a video for one of the tracks off of Japanese Whispers. They said, "Simon has left. Do you know any bass players?" I said, "Yes, I do. I'll do it if you want." And so the next thing, we did a couple of shows. We did a festival in England. We did a couple of shows in New York, and we did a couple of shows in San Francisco. And all the time, Robert was showing me this. He'd already had this idea about doing something along the lines of Aristocats, I think.
Yeah.
And he had this bass line, and he taught it to me, you know, the principal part of Lovecats.
Right.
So you're just like rolling along. It was very rock and roll, you know, playing shows, and you're flying here, and then you're flying there, and then the next you fly back from San Francisco to Paris, and that's not a short journey.
Nah.
and then we're in this fabulous studio in Paris with all these classical instruments around, like a timpani and vibraphone, and also tack piano, which is a piano which has the tacks on the felts. That's how you get that very bright kind of honky tonk sound.
Yeah.
And then there's a double bass, and Robert's like, yeah, you play that.
Yeah.
As well. I never played one before. I never played one since, but I got through it. So.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's
It was a really good time.
Cool.
I seem to remember all the like girlfriends came over, and but it was like 5 days. We did 3 tracks in 5 days. There was some subsequent overdubs on Lovecats. That wasn't quite finished, so that came back to London.
Okay.
And then I think that's when they worked with Dave Allen for the first time, because Dave kind of took my master and then finished it off, recorded the brass. Lovely guy, Dave. I don't know if you've had him on the show, but
no,
he was always
trying.
Yeah,
really down to earth, and nice sense of humor.
Awesome.
And so with Lovecats, I suppose I get a lot of credit for that, which is fair, because I was recording it, I was playing bass, I was really producing that time. And then but the kind of the last bit where they added the brass and mixed it. That was Dave Allen.
Right on.
So right on, Dave.
Cool.
So yeah, from the dark side to the light side.
Totally.
In about 18 months or 2 years.
Yeah, it's crazy short span of time.
But credit to Robert always comes up with the tunes, with most of usually the lyrics too.
So yeah, was that one pretty put together then going in? It's always been kind of like it was real flighty, just going in the studio, and you never really know how much of the song was together before you got in.
All we knew was the bum 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 bum. That's the bit that we knew.
Yeah.
And then I think obviously Robert probably had it all worked out.
Right.
So when we got to the studio, he was playing the piano, and so that's when the other changes became apparent.
Right.
And I'm sure we would have done it probably like this click track. Robert would play maybe a guide piano and a guide vocal.
Right.
Andy would have laid down the drums. So it's very piecemeal.
Yeah.
Then we would have probably gone back and got the piano right and got a better guide vocal, maybe put all the dub da dub dum 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 da dub da, all those piano parts, and then I would do the bass, which I did in 2 bits. You know about all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a great story.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And then I think Lowell played like a 1-note vibraphone thing that was very cool.
Yeah.
But the studio was so amazing. It was just like kids in a candy store, because it was sort of like, should we put timpani on here? No. They're just here. We don't have to play them. But you walk down the corridor. It was a big complex. You walk down the corridor and there'd be like other instruments leaning up against the wall, just full of, probably xylophones, glockenspiels. I don't, there just seemed to be, in those days, before, of course, now you just go like, oh, you want a glockenspiel, you just dial it up in your sampler. But which is fantastic, because then everybody has access to that creativity, and ultimately that's what it is. It's creativity. It might nowadays it would take you 5 minutes to dial up the sound and play a part. Then it would take you, let's try that. Let's do another take, maybe play that note. Let's do another take. Let me just add another bit of sound, like change the sound a little bit, do another take. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So like maybe 30, 40 minutes to get something that you thought was appropriate. Or,
which might help too then, I guess, with the idea of sticking with the idea a bit longer if you're going to set everything out to get it, as opposed to like patching it in or something. You can throw it away quicker. So you're like, let's make this work.
Yeah, I think ultimately I think I was pretty good at that. If it didn't work, if it really didn't work, then you have to go next.
Totally.
There's that part of the producer of you that has to like look at the clock and go, that no one's loving this, let's just move on.
Right on.
And I seem to remember, again, like Rack Studios, this room was a big sorts of room to record an orchestra in, obviously with all these instruments around. But it was sort of wooden. Like, so when you hear the kind of faux jazz guitar that Robert is playing, these kind of like very slinky licks, like the microphone is in the middle of the room, way away from the amplifier, so you're actually hearing like this big room, and it's sort of fed into, I don't know how much. There was this scene in Paris, I don't know when, maybe the 40s, something called, there's a band called the Hot Club, and it had this outrageous guitarist called Django Reinhardt, who had like 2 fingers because the others had been chopped off, and he played all that, like every single syllable he played a different chord, like incredible musicality. And so it was, I think Robert's idea may have been, I don't know that, I'm just thinking, might have been based on, they were all emigres. There was the violin player was it Stefan Grappelli, who's this wild jazzy violin player. So these guys are making this very cool jazzy sound, which I guess might have fed into Aristocats.
Right.
You know, maybe Robert's just thinking Paris, you know, Aristocats, Hot Club, Django Reinhardt, you know, and so like his guitar part is sort of like a tenth of what Django Reinhardt would do.
Right.
But that's
and just enough
that's
of like
that kind of
new wave flair in it too, you know, like where it's, you know, that's what's awesome. We're always trying to categorize just that single in a sense of like, yeah, it's like new wave jazz, or, you know, like where it's still poppy, but at the same time, like,
yes.
I mean, we've talked about how it would have been cool to get a whole album of that sound, you know, like, oh man, it would have been cool. I wonder if it would have worked.
The sound of people not knowing what they're doing. I think that was, but really giving it their best, you know, like, I guess going back to punk, you know, we all love some of those records where you sense everyone's, you know, the Buzzcocks, everyone's just like doing their best, but you know what, they got a great song, and their song will take you. This is what I've learned anyway after years and years. It's like if you have a good songwriter, then you know, it can carry you, all that spirit of punk playing is usually propping up a really good song,
right?
You know?
Totally agree.
Absolutely.
But I won't keep you too long. But speaking of great songwriting too, I wanted to ask you about your current projects in Astral Drive.
Thanks.
And can you tell us a little about that? And where's
I'd love to. Yeah, I thought we were going to be totally on message with the Cure, but Astral Drive is well, I mentioned Todd Rundgren earlier in the chat, and I got to about, you know, advanced years, and I just thought I want to make an album where I'm the artist and I just show my influences. So the Astral Drive is a sort of a band moniker, you know, like a name just to capture this vibe, very 70s, a little bit psychedelic, so sort of soulful harmony vocals. I'd like to think you know, a very spirited recording. It's me playing everything. Not too much thought goes into it. I'd like do the first take, the second take, the third take, just to try and capture the spirit of how I felt when I was a teenager. And my teenage tastes just were maybe more like into this kind of pop, but with little bits of blue-eyed soul and some rock as well, and some psychedelia. So Astral Drive was my kind of it was just me being me. It was not contrived. I just kind of this is what happens when I'm allowed to make a record, you know. So there's a bit, it's probably, you know, obviously it's something I love to do. I've kind of done a couple of albums now, and so they're available there on Spotify or iTunes, or the record company's called Low Jinx if you want to get an old-fashioned CD, but who wants. So thanks for asking. That's
no problem. Yeah, they're super catchy and fun tunes. I enjoy them. We'll put links for them too. And so Low Jinx, the website's the label that, or
Low Jinx, Low Jinx with an X. So that's what I mean. I've done lots of things since The Cure. But well, I've done a couple of things. But
it's been. You know, we did an episode on you back a little ways, right? We just read through your whole resume, and the other guys were just like, "Oh my god, he was part of that too." It's like, that and this and this. So I mean, lots of gems in there for sure.
So some of them are forgotten. You know, people say, especially when I was young, when I was doing The Cure, you know. Doing project after project, and you forget. And so he said, no, I wouldn't forget something that I produced. I might forget something that I mixed or engineered on, because you were just like working lots and lots of hours, you know, doing those 10,000 hours of, you know, that theory about if you do something for 10,000 hours, you kind of break through into this where you don't have to think about it. You just do it because you work so hard. You're so young. You have so much energy, but you work. And then it gets to a point, people say, wow, how'd you get that sound? And you go, I don't know. It's just you know,
in there. Yeah.
I've done it 500 times before, and I've learned that, anyway, you understand.
Yeah,
you understand,
totally.
so.
Is there anything, I'm sure you probably don't dwell on them too much at this point, but the idea of like thinking back on, since Pornography was your first, maybe, of like, is there anything you would do different now that you have way more experience and feel like, you know, you've grown so much as a producer?
You know, that's a nice thought, Gavin, but I think it's probably you know, it was sort of a gift. It's amazing to have worked on a record that people are still talking about and loving or exploring. I don't know. I'm sure I'd be much more obnoxious now if I went back to do it and go. So there was something. I think there was something. There was something in the air that night. You know that. No, it was just all the same age, just all exploring creativity, everyone being artistic, like having a record company to finance you to work in a really good studio, trusting you to come up with something. I know the record company I can't say I know. I would imagine they were disappointed when that record turned up. but fair, you know, they released it. They could have shelved it, you know. But yeah, it's just it was a gift to be part of it, and it did wonders for, you know, for my career, because you had, regardless of people loving it or hating it, it was on the charts. And so the music business is so shallow, thankfully, that they just look at the producer credit and they go, oh, Phil Thornalley, who is he? Let's get him. You know. So and that's how you move from one record to another, and hopefully every now and then, you know, make a good one, or a special one, or one that sells, or one that gets on the radio, and so you get to do it for another 3 or 4 years, and that's making a living. That's what it is.
And such great diversity too, because you would think you get every like goth kid in the world that's all like, I want him to do my album, you know, like like forever.
No, strangely not, you know. I don't know.
That's cool.
You would have that didn't happen.
No typecast. That's good.
Yeah, you're right. It is good. It is good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, on that note, we'll let you go. Thank you so much,
guys.
Yeah, we really can't thank you enough.
Appreciate it.
It's so awesome to meet you and get to chat with you and have you on the show here. So
it was really nice to meet you. I didn't know what I was stepping into, so excuse my reticence, but
we don't even know each episode.
I think that's the best way to do it. You know, just let it. You know, like. Chuck, as they call him, throws in a question every now and then. And Gavin,
I like to listen.
Yeah. Well, it works. It creates an atmosphere. We're in a little, we're having a little bubble here, and it's nice to talk about these things. And but you know, it's from a long while ago, and but I'm still proud. Still proud of that.
Thank you. And
I just want to say that I think it's awesome how like somebody like you and Todd Rundgren were so influential in some of our lives without even your own music, like with you know, Psychedelic Furs with Todd Rundgren and like all the stuff that he did that we still listen to.
Are you Todd fans?
Yeah, well, I mean, not so much music, but like his producing credits are absolutely out of this world. And I going through his list and your list, I'm like, wow, there's so much music that I've listened to that I didn't even know that you guys did. So,
well, thanks. I have to go off on a slight tangent that allows me to talk about myself again. And that is every record that there are a couple of instances. Psychedelic Furs, I did did 2 albums as the engineer with Steve Lillywhite as a producer, and he was the next album Psychedelic Furs did that was actually good was with Todd Rundgren. So then I'd mixed 2 albums for XTC, and what happened then? They went on to Todd Rundgren and he produced their best album. So it's almost as I'd like to think I kind of do all the wrong things, and then they give it to Todd and say, sort these guys out, sort these fuckers out, give them a hit. And he goes, okay, all right, you know, yeah. And he does his thing. I think he's genius. So it's just
you got to think of it like opening the pickle jar. Like you've loosened it and he popped it open.
Whoa.
So just think of it that way.
Yeah, yeah. And all the flavor came out.
Exactly.
Yeah. The stench was released. Yeah.
Awesome.
But wouldn't it have been amazing if Todd produced The Cure?
Yeah, maybe still time. Who knows?
There's still time.
Yeah.
I think he would do. He'd still make a radio record for them. I'm sure of that. I don't think it would be plain sailing somehow.
Yeah.
But, but unlike this podcast, which has been pure plain sailing.
Yeah.
Thank you. We appreciate
Thank you so much. And,
thanks, guys.
Cool.
So
Thank you for taking your time.
Speak to you next year when we do the 41 anniversary.
Sounds good. That's the
we'll make it a yearly event.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Yeah.
Yes,
we'll
we'll definitely look up the book. Thank you.
Yeah.
I definitely want to find it. I will learn French.
Yes.
Au revoir, mes amis. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Adios.
All right, so there you have it, guys. That was amazing. I'm still glowing. Just listening back, you know, it was kind of scary after like a week after recording it. I didn't even want to listen back as like the same.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'd play a show and then I find out that the sound man recorded it, you know, and they'll give you the CD afterwards. Like, here's the show, and I was like, oh, but that show was so fun. If I listen back to it, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I sounded kind of stupid there. So it's just like that was so fun. I don't even want to hear it now, you know. But hopefully I felt good with it. Again, what a class act that Phil is. So thank you so much.
Yeah, he brought that book, which was like had no clue what it was, and I'm really surprised that I hadn't run by it. And I'm sure that people listening are sort of rolling their eyes, like, "How did you not know about that?"
Yeah, well,
you know. I mean, but we're not French,
so
but
it's still not gonna be too. But yeah, they have it online. I saw you can order. It. It's like $20.
And the amazing thing is that Phil, like, we got off the interview, and I was just like, I can't message him like right after to say thank you, because it's like, you know, you get a number from a girl and you're like, you can't call right away. Like that's so like, I'm just like, I'm not going to message him saying thank you right away. I'll do it in a couple days. He messaged me and was like, thank you so much for having me on. You guys are so nice and like made everything so warm and friendly. Yeah. And then he sent me another link to the book. Oh. And he was like, this is the book. And I was just awesome. Like, I'm like, thank you, man. Like you didn't have to do any of that at all. But like, that's so cool. So
that was very cool. Yeah.
I'm gushing a little bit.
He called you Chuck too. He's got a nickname for you. That was awesome.
Yeah.
For Phil,
I gritted my teeth through that. Yeah. I don't like my name Charles. I don't like Charlie. I'm not fond of Chuck, and Chaz is the only one that's like kind of out there. So
you'll make an exception for Phil, though, right?
Absolutely.
You can call him Chuck.
You can call me Chuck, Chippy all day long. I don't care.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that was cool with the Da Vinci thing. I think I had read that somewhere too, but then after seeing that, and I was just looking at the top credits actually, and they actually thank Da Vinci in the inside of the top. So that was kind of cool. I never really full made that connection until he had said that. I was like, oh yeah, that's awesome. So pretty cool.
Yeah, I think my favorite part was probably how he talked about having the microphone in the middle of the room.
Yeah,
and just how he explained it really kind of made me feel like I was there watching it.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna say
like
he
seeing
painted
it
that
come
whole
together.
picture so much of like recording Lovecats and just the whole room there. And I don't know, it's something about these Cure stories where you just know all the characters so well that you could see it, it's like a movie in your head when they start telling these stories. But yeah, you really painted that picture great of just going into this awesome studio in Paris there and recording Lovecats and stumbling across each little part there. It was really cool. So,
it's very much like seeing an adaptation of a book into a movie and then going back and reading the book.
Yeah.
And then you have all the pieces in your head of like this person's, and then you go back and you see all the details that are inside the book. That like even like a 5-minute conversation, like kind of like you're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Like I never thought of it like that, and now I see the song in a completely different light.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so, and just the album in whole, just thinking about how he wasn't like into that type of music.
Yeah, I know.
Which I didn't even I just thought he was down with it. Like when it like because he toured with them and I thought he was just part of it, and just I was just like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, and it's so early in his career too, and even just the fact he's so willing to like talk about that stuff and puts up with Cure people so much for his like huge long career, and it's always like every interview you see with him, they're like, so the first thing you recorded ever, and he's probably like, oh, all right, yeah, let's do this again, but he totally understands that it's a big deal to all of us Cure nerds out here.
Yeah.
So that's awesome that he's always so open to it. And just, a couple little nuggets there. I mean, there weren't too many huge bombshells, but I thought it was cool when he said in passing that, like, Matthew dropped in during the Pornography, like, to hang out. You're like, oh, wow, I would have thought that relationship was long gone by that point. But, I guess not. It's just hanging out, and that was pretty cool. And I love the Graham Chapman story that he elaborated on when you asked about that was great, and the recording there. So that's pretty cool. So
and then like I wanted to talk to him about Damnation AD's cover, because I know it wouldn't be up his alley at all,
right?
But like just to like have like a reference, like somebody else like absolutely adored what you did and turned it into their own thing. So
or just any
maybe I'll
covers
send it to him eventually, but like I'm just like, whoa, that's so cool. But man, I like for like 3 days after this conversation, I was just like almost giggling.
Yeah, totally. Me too.
I feel so stupid, but it's just like it never happens to people like you and me. Like we don't, we're antisocial, and like we don't go out of our way to, talk to people in public. So like this kind of thing is very like, I don't know. It's big for me. So.
Yeah, me too. It's just one of these things where it's like the posters and the pictures as a kid, all these images of him, even from the '84 era, there is just like so burned into my head, where it's like, this is actually the dude. This is so weird.
Yeah. and I think about how important that album is to me about, dealing with my depression and everything, and like what it means to me when I'm in those moments, that like having that connection of like talking to somebody that helped make that album. And I'm just like, it just, I don't know, it reinvigorates my love for the band and that album. So
it is so crucial with that stuff. I mean, to any diehard music fan, and musicians all know it, and it's kind of a no-brainer, but for just people out there, of like how much the producing and the mixing is so important. You really can just turn like one knob and a song will be completely different when you're mixing stuff, if you don't have that backwards atmosphere track in there or whatever, like we were talking about. It's like totally changes the sounds. I mean, everything you love about that album would not be the same without the decisions that he and Robert made production wise. It's crucial. So I mean, you really can't
think of some of our favorite bands that have put out multiple albums, and if they've gone with multiple producers. Like I've had bands that like they put out good albums, but the producing's shit. So it's like you're missing out on so much, and the producer is so important. And as we saw with the self-titled,
I mean, just those last couple albums, that's a huge debatable part of like, maybe that's not what put them over the top as being a great album or not. You know, it's like, yeah, if you maybe had tweaked those a little different, they might have been a completely different song. You know, so yeah, so much credit that needs to go there. So, and I just love the way he was so open. I mean, just as a guy, like talking about technology and you know, evolving with it. You can tell he's somebody that's, you know, definitely not the kind of dude. We didn't get any like, oh, back in my day stories and stuff, and like nothing that even remotely
I love that. I thought that was very awesome. That he was like, kids can go make an album in, you know, 60 minutes today and like be artistic and do what we did, you know, and that's great. And this is like, you know, he wasn't resentful about it.
No,
like, I put so much fucking work into this, and like, and he's like, no, to go do it, you know. So that was awesome. So,
and just the idea of plugins and stuff for when you're, you know, you have every sound at your disposal now, you know, and like back then it was like, that's laying on the floor, cool, let's try that, you know. But it's or even the sampling and stuff like that, of how much easier it is now. But it was all kind of told in a, isn't that cool and crazy, as opposed to, oh, these kids don't know how easy they have it, which is a fair argument too. But at the same time, he never seemed to go that route, which
it's not their fault.
Exactly. It's like, sorry,
you blame them for the time that they're born in, and like the technology they have. You know, let them do what they want to do, you know.
Exactly.
But the only uncomfortable part was his raving over Todd Rundgren. But we've discussed that I've come around on Todd, and it was his producing credentials kind of, you know, swung me the other way. So, and you know, Phil's right up there, I think. And David Allen, because we were talking about him too. Like all of them had their hands in some of our favorite songs and bands ever. So
for sure. So cool deal. Well, I guess we'll leave it at that, and we'll just say a giant thank you again to Phil, and hope you guys out there enjoyed the conversation. And sorry we didn't have time to get viewer or listener questions or anything like that in, but maybe for the next anniversary, like we talked about, we'll harass him again. But cool.
And he wants to sit down for 4 hours. With us.
You know, we'll push our luck. That's usually how it goes. It's like, all right, guys, let's not push it
a bit much.
Cool. Well, again, thank you, Chaz, for making it happen too, and I hope everybody out there really enjoyed that, and hopefully more on the burner, and we'll see what we can whip up for you next time. So cool deal. So I guess I'll say bye to Chaz here before I go into the Patreon rant and everything, so I won't put you through that there, Chaz. We'll just
thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so talk hard out there, and thanks again, Phil.
Thank you, Phil.
Yes, the Patreon, our nearest and dearest. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much, Patreon crew. And if anyone else out there wants to join the Patreon, go to patreon.com/The Holy Hour Podcast. We would love to have you on board and appreciate the support. All our patroneers out there, be sure to keep your eyes and ears peeled. I'm going to be sending out a message here to gather your preferred t-shirt size. I want to get an exclusive Holy Hour Patreon t-shirt headed your way. So if you also want to get in on that action, join the Patreon soon. So if you're in the Patreon crew like Donna and Craig and Jeff Hilton and Jeff Cortland Jones and Suzanne and John and Ben and Allison and Alan and Dione, and we'd love to welcome our newest member, Namicio. Hello and welcome. We're so happy to have you in the family. So on top of that, we got our Patreons that want to give a shout out, like the one and only Scott Kruger, who we heard just last episode. You all know and love him. Go see Scott Kruger on the Sarlacc Digest, his other podcast. It's a Star Wars podcast where they'll be wrapping up their thoughts on the Book of Boba Fett. And you can catch that live show on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube. And they're going to be really diving into it now, since it's not it's gonna be wrapping up so they can analyze all this craziness that's been happening in the last 3 episodes. If you're a Star Wars fan, you want to get in on this action. So go see the Sarlacc Digest on YouTube. You can listen to them anywhere on podcast too, if you don't want to catch the live show or miss it. So be sure to check out the Sarlacc Digest with Scott and the crew over there. We also want to give a shout out from Matt for the Red Cross Blood Donor app, which makes it easy and so easy to schedule and donate blood. Just download the app. It's free. You'll find the best place to do that. If you don't really want to go that route, just contact your local blood bank or hospital and donate, because, you know, people need blood out there. Can't live without that. So be a helpful person and donate your blood. You don't have to give them all of it, just enough. You'll make more. Kate over at CureThreads.com is cranking out more awesome, originally designed, inspired Cure designs that you can get on a wide range of products over at CureThreads.com. Everything from boots to shirts to mugs, all kinds of cool stuff. And she's had a cool deals going all week. We're catching just the tail end of this here, if I'm reading it correctly. So I think you still got 1 day left. This will come out on Sunday. You got till Valentine's Day to get in on some special deals over at CureThreads.com. So start pulling up that web address right now and check out all the goodies she has to offer over there at CureThreads.com. And of course, DJ Mixmaster Lisa, former child star and Pulitzer Prize winning author. And you know what? She loves a bar up in Calgary named Dickens, and she wants you to check out their live streams if you are far away and not in Calgary. Go on over to Twitch and check out Dickens YYC. They do awesome live shows of DJing where you can have your own dance party in the comfort of your own home and enjoy the tunes and the conversation in the chat room. Be a part of the action. Dickens YYC. At this point, it seems probably best just to set your notifications to let Dickens YYC on Twitch know when they're popping up for your dance party needs. And hopefully they'll have their doors back open soon. It's an actual venue, too, that hosts a wide range of live events and live shows. And we'll hopefully have them back in action soon so you can be part of it if you live in the Calgary area. Seems like an amazing place I hope to visit someday. So on top of that, 17 Second Shirts by Chaz, one and only. Go on over 17secondshirts.bigcartel.com or just follow him on Instagram at 17_seconds and get the latest scoop on the pre-orders for whatever designs he whips up next. You want to be on the ball and catch that as soon as it happens. There's bound to be tons of cool anniversary stuff coming up just a few months now, so you don't want to miss out. Be sure to subscribe on Apple and Spotify and YouTube, and just follow us on the Instagram at the Holy Hour Podcast and on Facebook too. And you can always contact me at any of those outlets or just directly at gavinconnor@gmail.com. Again, a very special thank you to Phil Thornalley and Chaz and you guys out there for listening. Until next time, talk hard.